Hersey here. Now this is something new. I suppose it's a continuation of our Taste and Drink series, but it's not going to just encompass the wines that we import at the French Wine Centre. We'll talk about wine business, we'll talk about wine trends, we'll talk about fine wine, fun wine, faulty wine, just anything that catches my attention. So we might bring in some guests. It's really on a whim, as regular as possible, completely unscripted and completely unplanned. Now, this morning I thought that we would start it off with looking at a new producer that we've just started importing at the French Wine Centre, Domaine Sylvain Langoureau, based in Aubin, and the first vintage we've got is 2022. A stunning vintage on paper. It should be another drought year, but it's definitely not. Both the reds and whites are incredibly balanced and transparent. The reds in particular shouldn't perform like they do. They're incredibly sort of pure, and while they're ripe, they do have a lovely transparency in both colour and character. Now, the 2022 whites from lesser terroirs, and I don't mean that in the likes of, some people might think that Saint-Aubin is lesser than Puligny. I actually believe that Saint-Aubin, particularly in the warmer years, performs really well, as do most people. The discerner character that a vineyard that performs well in a hop vintage is just a high level of limestone and really quite sort of white soils, and they really sort of shine. Now, the only rule is the exception, but Saint-Aubin, particularly the Premier Crus, and we'll taste a couple in a moment, really do show that they sort of hold the heat and retain minerality and interest. Now, Sylvain Langoureau, a bit of a lesser known producer, but if you actually dig into a few reviews and books, they're incredibly well regarded. They're incredibly high scoring. Their wine reviews, let's just say from Ala Meadows, is very conservative, will vary between sort of 89 and 93. And that being said, for wines that are $139 on the shelf, that is remarkable. And that's for 2022 Premier Cru Saint-Aubin, $139 on the shelf. That's just unheard of. I think the 2021s are 25% cheaper, and Natalie actually apologised for increasing the price. And when I saw the price, I genuinely couldn't believe it. So for that regard, I mean, you've just got to get behind them, just even for respecting people's wallets and still wanting to be consumed by their long-term customers. So that's a big tick. Now, these guys are specialists in the terroirs of Saint-Aubin. They've got about half a dozen Premier Crus. We, on our first tranche in 2022, only got 2, and they really didn't have any. They really did try and look after us when there wasn't really, and then there probably would have been a few customers that might have been a bit upset that we got some. That's from around the world. We're the sole importer in Australia. But we did receive a fair allocation of Bourgogne Aligote, Aubin Blanc, Saint-Aubin Premier Cru Le Champlots, and Saint-Aubin Premier Cru Gamay. Now, if we start with the Aligote, by memory, this is about $60, $65 on the shelf. Now, that's sort of industry standard for a Côte d'Or Aligote. Beautiful and fresh. Aligote is probably something that you see the ripeness in a little bit more in 2022. This is still very sort of lean and very sharp, but there seems to be just a little bit more flesh, a little bit more of that sort of, say, ripe lemon juice, and then with a little bit of coaching and a little bit of time, then it sort of comes together and you sort of see a bit more of those sort of white florals and a little bit more tightness and a little bit more minerality. Stonkingly good. So the ripeness on the nose doesn't translate to the palate at all. That is aggressively tight, light on its feet. No real puppy fat. It's still got fruit, but not puppy fat. It's good to go right now. Straight, mineral. like tiny little razor blades just chopping your tongue. That is absolutely perfect. You couldn't want anything more from that wine. Now, I'm really quite excited because while I've drunk quite a few of the other wines since they've landed, for some reason, I just keep forgetting to drink an Aligote. There's been one rolling around the back of my car because a business partner loves Aligote, but has been off the grog. Very disappointing, so that's probably realistically why I haven't had a bottle of that. Now, the Aubin Blanc. This does show a little bit more of the vintage, still very sort of tight and focused, but again, just like the nose on the Aubin, has a little bit more of that sort of ripe lemon juice, sort of lemon sort of boiled sort of sweet. But again, just with a few swirls of the glass, you're starting to see some of those white florals come together, a little bit more sort of, now into maybe even a little bit of sort of lime. And that, when I say lime compared to lemon, for me, that's a little bit tighter and a little bit more. There's a slight, you know, you can have lime that's just flat out aggressive, and that's what people say with lime. And then you can have a lime which is a bit more like an exotic sort of lime. I know that sounds a little bit sort of silly, but you can also have a lime oil, which again is a little bit more flamboyant than just a straight, strict lime that a lot of people talk about. Funnily enough, I looked at that when it first landed, and it was definitely just a little bit broad. I'm talking about the day it landed. First thing I did was crack a bottle. It's in the morning. It's had a little taste, but that has tightened up considerably. Very happy where that is. Now the Le Champlots, I believe. So as you drive into, if you ever go to Burgundy, most people will drive past Montrachet. So you'll be coming from the village of Puligny-Montrachet or just above it, and you'll go past, Montrachet on the right, Battard on the left, and as you drive down towards the Saint-Montrachet, you'll cross into it, and then you'll see a sort of a comb, and that's where Saint-Aubin, the village, is. So through Montrachet, chuck a right, and you head up. You've got Chenevat on the left, you've got Henri on the right, high on the hill, and as you drive into Saint-Aubin, you'll come across a little village, and that's Gamay. Now, obviously there's a great variety called Gamay, and there might be a little bit of Gamay planted around. I haven't come across any, but it's the lower, smaller village, a hamlet, if you will. Now, just above that is Sir Gamay, and above that again is Les Champlots, so a lot higher on the hill, and actually sort of slightly faces southwest. Now, next to these two vineyards, next to Sir Gamay is Henri and Le Mager de Dantechen, and above that, which connects more so to Les Champlots, is Puligny-Montrachet Premier Cru La Garenne, and then Puligny-Montrachet Village Le Trezan. And then behind that is Sous le Puy, which the Middleman does as a fine example. But at that stage, you're extraordinarily high on the hill, very, very thin topsoil, and very, very racy wines. And you can definitely see that in this wine. A little bit more sort of class, possibly a little bit more of a sort of an oak influence, but not necessarily. I don't want that to be the first takeaway that you get from this wine, but there definitely is just another layer of complexity. There's something that just brings you in that little bit more. While they all have a very, very similar style and you want to drink them, this makes you think twice about the complexity and the underlying sort of character and longevity of it. It's also a little bit more akin to what you would expect of the wines of, the three sort of White King villages, Meursault, Puligny-Montrachet and Chassagne-Montrachet. Absolutely stunning. There is a little bit more puppy fat, which mutes the wine initially when you taste it, and then when that dissipates, you are left with a lot more of that sort of length, minerality and structure. It's beautifully long, not Puligny Premier Cru long, just shy of that, but everything else is there. But the thing that makes this so much more attractive as a wine for consumption is it's got all the hallmarks of, say, a beautiful Puligny-Montrachet Premier Cru, just bringing on its drinkability that's slightly earlier. and also showing its bones. And that's why people who drink Saint-Aubin from a good producer just absolutely adore it, because they're just ready to go. They're exactly what they want. They don't have to wait. There's less puppy fat, even though there's a little bit of puppy fat here. They're just showing more. Now, Sir Gamay, which is below Le Champlot, automatically showing a little bit more sort of size, but still in the same nature, and a little bit more sort of stone fruit. While this is definitely a little bit more sort of floral and high tone, this is showing more sort of detailed orchard fruit, say pear, but very, very detailed. You know, you can almost pear skin. And when I say pear compared to pear skin, for me, pear skin does show a little bit more. There's a little bit more detail, and there's a little bit more difference. Pear can be quite a simple term. Pear skin, for me, shows a little bit more complexity. And again, mutes for a moment. While it's a little bit fuller in the mouth, it actually shows more grip and minerality. Champlot, probably this tiny bit sort of tighter and longer, whereas this has more breadth and more structure. So not weight, but there is a more structure. All in all, these are stupidly good value. Couldn't be more excited. They're exactly what people that love Burgundy want, I believe, in this day and age. They drink like top tier producers, stylistically, and they're extraordinarily affordable. When I say that, I mean in the context of Burgundy. I'll be out and about showing these to a few key trade partners, restaurants and wine bars. So if you are in the trade and you'd like to taste these wines, just reach out. They're relatively limited. They're sold extraordinarily well because of the price, but we did get good volumes of each cuvee. The good news is in 2023, we do get a little bit of honour of me and a few other Premier Crus from Saint-Aubin. So extraordinarily excited. Okay, we'll see you next episode. Could be about anything, I'm not sure yet, but if you've got any requests, please ask.